That's good.
Yeah, let him ask. Mine's kind of silly. Absolutely.
It's not silly at all. Yeah, yeah.
You want to talk about great topic for Monday morning, anger and resentment.
Anger and resentment. Okay. That's
Happy Monday.
that's one topic. Okay, yeah, yeah, Grace.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what's your favorite movie and why? Reference a lot of movies.
That's another question.
Yep, sure is.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Indra?
About what kinds of things you keep to us.
Like secrets? Or okay. Okay. Zane? How about now? Sybil?
I would say I'm going to tag on to Raphael and say, what role does shame play in anger and resentment?
Great. Sure. I would agree. Shame is big. I've experienced a lot of it.
That's it? Anas? Okay. Yeah, Grace?
I was reviewing or revisiting the audios from Module 3.
Hello? I'm sorry?
I was revisiting the audios from Module 3. Why is that a tongue twister? I don't know. And there was one, and I can't remember which one, maybe it was the Stoicism one, about how you should let the self that the world creates just sort of pass through you and over you and embrace the self that is within you but then also, how do you know the difference? No?
No, it's great. I mean, the questions are really amazing. It's too bad I'm not very qualified for any of them, really, in a proficient way.
Only you are. You're uniquely qualified to tell us your favorite movie and why. That's your favorite.
Well, since movies are perhaps the easiest thing to talk about, and then we'll go into shame and anger and self and the things we keep to ourselves. You know, you watch certain movies because your favorite actors or actresses play in them, like Al Pacino. I don't care what the movie is. If his name is on the list, I'll watch it. And even if the movie is a complete disappointment, just watching his face is enough. Or Anthony Hopkins. There are some movies where your favorite actors are not really playing, but the theme of the movie and narrative is quite interesting. And so you sit back and you just watch it. And I think movies very much are like food. You know, one day you feel like a burger, another day you feel like pasta, another day you feel like, I don't know, pizza. I think there are certain moments where you just want to watch a movie where it's one of romanticism. You know, it's a love story. There's a good amount of longing, loss, perhaps, like Sleepless in Seattle, let's just say. There is, let's just say, another movie where, or you just wake up in the morning and you say, why is the world so cruel, for example? And maybe you'll watch Rambo #4, you know. Or maybe you read a book the night before about Joseph Campbell, and you say, well, tonight I want to watch something interesting, and then you watch Star Trek. I mean, not Star Trek, but Star Wars, where the light and the dark come together and try to battle it out. And so, really, movies have to do with where you are, how you are, what you want to feel, and most of this stuff really just happens to us quite accidentally. I think one of the worst movies, it's not a movie, it's a TV show. It comes out of Australia. And it's not really a movie, it's more like animation. It's called Bluey. Yeah, you should watch it. The problem with the movie is, I mean, it's cartoons. What you're confronted with, and there are like 50 seasons, and each season has like 900 episodes. What you have is the embodiment of perfect parents and the embodiment of perfect children. And kind of like the Truman Show, if you've seen it with Jim Carrey, the streets are clean, all the friends are quite well mannered, and they behave well, and they speak well, and they're really good friends to one another. And it's funded by the Australian government. I mean, if you know anything about that particular part of the world, the way they live their lives, the number of hours they work during the week, how much taxes they give away, everything about their life is different than us. They're also governed by greed, but their greed takes a different shape and form. It has a different color, it's seasoned differently. And I only say Bluey is one of the worst TV shows is because it inspires you, because you're in the presence of parents who are uncorrupted. They're just there for their kids. Even if the guy has to go to work and make money and put food on the table, the moment the kids say, stay home, where are you going? He says, okay. Even if the mother is like exhausted, dead tired. It only takes, her child, Bluey, for example, to ask, let's play, and she says, okay. And it inspires you because you want to be parents like that, and you want to have children like that. But then you realize you're a human being, you're not a cartoon character, and you live in a world where greed and violence and corruption reign. So, and I suppose that's the task of all movies. Rambo is about justice and the power to balance the equation to some extent. The Last Castle, which Robert Redford plays in, it's about, someone who has lost their identity and reclaims it, finds it in prison. And so that's what movies do for the most part. They are what they call cultural release. Let's say you're walking around Oakland and you feel helpless and you feel lonely and in despair. And all of a sudden you say, maybe I want to watch the movie Frankie and Johnny. Or maybe you're an immigrant and you want to try to make it big in this country. And you watch Scarface. So a good amount of the things that are out there really have to do with the sort of emotions that live inside me, the sort of aspirations that I have, the sort of failings that I've experienced. And I don't know who to tell. I don't even understand them myself. All I know is that I want an outlet. I can't go out there and beat people up, but I'll watch Manny Pacquiao a little bit, or Mike Tyson, or Floyd Mayweather. So... So anger, shame, resentment.
The cousins or brothers or neighbors or each other.
Monday morning.
It certainly is.
Translated in your head, it comes out. can answer in Arabic later.
Yeah.
Or Persian.
You know, anger is an interesting emotion, and I suppose it's from the moment you and I are born to the time we die, life is nothing but a struggle. It is. If you have power, if, for example, your TV is broke, if you have power, that means if you have money, if you have a car, and if you have a Costco membership, and let's just say you don't want to go there by yourself, and you ask your wife, and she says yes because she loves you or cares for you, or she hates you, but she likes the TV, and she doesn't trust your judgment. She says, okay, let's go together. Now, let's say from here you go home and you have the story that's playing in your head. I want to go home and I watch, and today and tomorrow I'm off, and I want to watch Godfather, the trilogy. And as you play with that story, that narrative, or that desire more and more and more, you become much more intimate with it. Now you have a relationship. That today I want to go home and I want to watch TV. I want to order pizza from Zachary's, grab myself a couple bags of chips, some sodas, and just have a good time with my wife and kids. You don't care about anything else, and that's like becoming very focused. And you become focused when you have an intimate relationship with something, anything. You become single-minded. You go home and your wife says, while I was vacuuming, accidentally I tripped over the TV, it fell from the ceiling and it's all broke. The TV was your Garden of Eden. It was your paradise. It was your Jesus Christ. It was a way for you to get rid of boredom, to find happiness, paradise down here on earth for a couple of days. It was a way for you to kind of find distraction from the busyness and the burden of life. And life really is a burden that's placed on human shoulders. Because unlike all the animals out there, you really have to figure out what to do with your life. And especially as the culture evolves or maybe devolves, and something about our culture steals, robs, destroys meanings, identity, relevance, significance from our lives, life becomes even more burdensome. You no longer have to please God. You just have to find meaning for your life. But you go to Home Depot, it's no good. You go to In-N-Out, it's no good. You look at your wife, it's no good. You look at your kids, it's no good. You look at everything about your life and you realize there is so little meaning in it. And it's no longer an age where you say, well, God made my life this way and I should accept my life the way it is because it came from God. That particular belief system is God. And now the sort of burden that people had in regards to life some maybe 500 years ago, for you now in 21st century has a different quality to it. It's much more burdensome. You're much more depressed. You feel much more lonely and alienated. I doubt very much Karl Marx, when he spoke about alienation, really, if he was to come back to life, he wouldn't understand what alienation really means in the 21st century. Because life is so different now than it was in the 19th and 20th century, you see. And so when you go home and you realize that the TV doesn't work, it's like you've been expelled. Now, what happens is there's a disturbance. In other words, there is this crack that's not in your narrative. I drove home really, really fast, and I got the pizza, and I got the chips, and I showered, and I shaved, and I want to lay with my wife and watch TV, but there is no TV. That's the first crack. And you try to ask your wife, well, how did this happen? And the moment there's a disturbance, there's a crack, what you do is you try to fix it. Now, let's say you're sort of a handyman, you pick up the TV, you plug it in, you try to look at, the stuff in the back, whatever they're called, and you try to, fiddle with them, see if accidentally you can bring it back to life. And the TV remains dead. Now, you rise up to fix the TV because you want the crack to go away so your narrative can come back to life. So you can, jump into bed with your wife and watch 5 hours of TV, but it's not working out. And as you're playing with the TV, trying to fix it, frustration overcomes you. And you keep asking your wife, how could you do this? How many times do you have to tell you, pay attention when you're vacuuming? Maybe we should go to Costco and buy a cordless vacuum, like one of those Dysons for $700, And so the blame game comes into being. You try to punish your wife, and your wife says, well, you didn't wash the dishes last night, and I'm trying to do the entire thing. Clean the house, vacuum this, do laundry, make food. And as you try to shame her, she tries to shame you, you see. So it begins with a sense of frustration. And you look at the time and you realize, well, you've been playing with trying to fix a TV for an hour and a half, and now anxiousness overcomes you. And remember, all these negative emotions are like a leech attached to your body. I don't know if you know what a leech is. It's like a worm that's very, very tiny, that sticks to your flesh, and it begins to suck the blood out of you, and all of a sudden it weighs like 50 pounds. When it first got on you, it was like half a pound, let's just say. I don't know what kind of a leech, weighs half a pound. But by the time it's done sucking most of your blood, it's like 50, 60 pounds. And you look at the time and you realize that you've been playing to no success, and the TV is not going to get fixed. And then you say, damn, my day is ruined. I only had 2 days off, and here it is. And you go online and you look at the Bank of America, how much money you have in your bank, and it says $2.25. Well, that's not going to take you much far. Now you're a little bit more angry. And by anger, I mean frustration, anxiety has blossomed now. Now, there are a couple of things about these emotions that you need to understand. These emotions can either be expressed outwardly, or you can be like a sage or a saint or a mystic, or just very mature. You can hold it in. So anger by itself doesn't mean really anything. It depends how you wish to express it. And if you want to hold it in, how mature are you in holding it in? Sometimes, if you can imagine human beings to be like a balloon, if you put a lot of air in the balloon, it's going to pop. If on the other hand, the capacity of the balloon and you just put enough air into it, it can sustain itself for a long, long, long time. So just because you're able to hold in a certain amount of emotion, it doesn't actually mean that you have the capacity or longevity to do so for a long time. There's a good chance, as many of us in this class experience, you hold something in, and that could be temperamental. It could be because you've read a book, maybe because you've been to a therapist, and you realize, well, you're holding in the emotions, but your companion doesn't really understand what he or she is doing. Just because you don't say anything, it doesn't mean you don't see. Okay. So what happens is your resentment grows. And resentment comes in two ways. You resent yourself for not speaking up, and you resent for your companion because he or she happened to be far too dumb to notice their behavior, whether it's speech or action, and how it's impacting you and your life and creating emotions that you don't really want to be around inside you. Now, so remember, as you have more of these emotions and as they blossom inside you like leech, they take more energy from you, they take more power from you, and you become more poor. If you're poor, what happens? Let's say you read the meditations written by Marcus Aurelius, and all of a sudden you say, man, I resent this guy. He's old, he's done so many crummy things in his life, he has lived a life filled with sin, even though he was not a Christian. Let's just categorize him as such. How is it that he was able to contain his emotions so well? And so you try to mimic, you try to write the way he does, speak the way he does, feel about life the way he does. But you're not Marcus Aurelius. You're just an imitator. And imitators are counterfeit. You'll eventually get caught, either by life or by yourself. It's like your mom says, here, honey, here's a 24 karat gold, for example. And you take it to a shop to sell it because you can't pay rent. And the guy looking at this watch, supposedly 24 karat, says, I'm sorry, this is a fake. So you try to kind of imitate Marcus Aurelius, and eventually life says to you, you're just a scumbag. You've been faking it all along, but here you are. This is who you really are. When you realize you have no money, when you realize that you have no TV, you become really, really angry. And it's not just about the TV. Remember, it's about the story you created for yourself in this classroom. You want to go home and watch 10 hours of TV. And as you and your wife wrestle, as you wrestle with yourself, as once in a while you catch yourself having screamed at your wife and feeling bad and ashamed, there comes a point where, again, you go to your bank account, realize you don't have any money, then you scream at your wife. Do we have any credit cards? These are all attempts to remove anger or poverty from you. And eventually she says, yes, we have a Visa. Can you check the interest rate? She says, yes, it's 28.2%. Now you're consumed by anger. You're not rational, And that's what emotions are. They're not rational. Rationality means you create a good amount of space between you and a certain event that has caused this other you with these other emotions. And you sit back and you observe not only yourself, you also observe the event outside that has the power to push you around so much. Okay? So Immanuel Kant, who argued that what human beings have in common is we have the power to be reasonable and rational animals. That's actually not true. You can't treat life or yourself like a mathematical equation, because that's what Immanuel Kant argued. But Immanuel Kant was a guy who was not married, who didn't have children, who had lots of money, who had a great job, and from what little I know about his life, he died relatively peacefully. And his life very much was like a clockwork. He would wake up at 6 in the morning, go for a walk, have his breakfast, go up and down the stairs a few times, go teach his classes, come back home. That's it. And he was religious. After a good amount of wrestling, and you wrestle because you're angry, and you wrestle because you want to have domination over anger or emotions, and after you've villainized your wife and she has villainized you, there comes a point where the two of you make peace. You say, okay, I'll just work an extra 5, 10, 15, 20 hours. I know the credit card interest rate is 28%. It's a hell of a lot. But let's just go buy this TV. We need a TV anyways. And we'll just pay the interest for 1 month. Then we'll pay the rest of it off. She says, okay. And you guys are driving to Costco. And you're both very, very quiet. You're asking yourself if it's worth buying a TV for like $1,500 or $2,000, if it's worth being in debt. Why are you so weak? Why do you fall victim to this particular temptation? Maybe instead of watching TV, you can go for a hike with your wife. You play all these games. And then you say to yourself, whisper to yourself, kind of like what Kendra was saying. You say, Raphael, did you really have to speak to your wife in that way? Did you have to blame her? What is wrong with you? You're no longer 15 or 16 or 20. Now the anger, turns inward. Now you begin to be a bit more self-reflective. The emotions have gone away. Now you're confronted with a different set of emotions. Not what you have is shame. Not shame before your wife, but shame for yourself. And then as your wife is just looking the other direction, being very upset with you, because, she has this whole set of responsibilities you don't even understand or care to understand. With your right hand, you stretch it out and you hold her hand and you say, Joanna, I'm sorry. I'm just a stupid man. And she says, don't talk to me. Oh, Joanna, don't be like that. You know why you're doing this? A couple of reasons. Anger is no longer your companion. Shame is. Regret is. Remorse is. In addition, you also have the power. You're sitting in the car, you're driving to Costco. Your dream is almost coming true. All you need is your wife to make peace with you. You know, she becomes your church. You kneel, you beg, you cry, you repent, and after 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, there are even moments where while you're trying to ask for forgiveness, you raise your voice. You say, God damn it, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm sorry. But this anger is not about the TV. You want to be accepted. You want to be received well. You want to be forgiven. You just don't know what else to do. And you realize the same frustration that overtook you while trying to fix the TV, now you're trying to fix the wife. Now you're trying to fix the emotion that you have inside you. So as long as you know how frustration works, as long as you know how it blossoms into anxiety, confusion, helplessness, fear, anger, it doesn't matter what path in life you walk into or what event visits you. Whether it's a TV or me dismissing your question over and over again in this class, it works the same way. Once you understand something really, really well, it doesn't mean that you won't fall victim to it, but you can at least understand it when some time passes. Now you go to Costco, and Costco has beautiful TVs, man, you know. And so as you're walking through the TV aisle, you see 5,000 different TVs, and there is one that's winking at you. Buy me, buy me, you know. And let's say it's a Samsung, I don't know, 955-inch TV. And you look at your wife and you say, honey, let's get that. That? I don't like that. Uh-oh. Let's get this other one. But you know what happens when you just focus on one thing and you dismiss all the other things, but your wife has a different focus on a completely different thing? Now you have another wrestling match. She tries to convince you, you try to convince her. And now it's very much like going back and fixing the TV. Now somehow the two of you begin to wrestle, but you do it civilly. Now you're in the middle of Costco, there are all these people looking at you, watching you. Good morning. You know, and knowing that you're a little bit of a child, she looks at you and says, Rafael, it's 28.2% interest rate. We can buy a TV maybe for $2,000, but for $7,000, that's a bit ridiculous. A TV is a TV. You know, it doesn't need to be voice activated. TV turn on, TV turn off, TV put on Rambo, you know? And so, given that women have a good amount of power, you accept. But you accept with a lot of resentment. And there comes a point, since we are men and we lack the patience, he says, all right, let's just get the TV, let's go home. And then on the way home, the two of you talk about which TV would have been better, but you're stuck with the one that she chose. And then you take the TV inside the house, you take it out of the box, you look at the booklet, and you try to put it together, diode by diode. And as you're engaged in setting up the TV, you forget all about the Costco stuff. But the pamphlet is a little complicated. And as you try to put the TV together, you realize all of a sudden you're just getting fidgety, a little anxious, a little frustrated, a little. The same frustration as you were trying to fix the broken TV. It's come back. Let's just say you put the TV together and it's really good now. It's going to take you about an hour and a half to connect to the internet, to set it up, you know. And now it's 7 p.m. You're exhausted. Like a leech, you got no blood left inside you. You look at your wife and you say, you want to watch TV? She says, I'm done. I just want to go to bed. Okay. You wake up in the morning, and let's just say you have a couple of nightmares. You wake up in the morning at 6, the kids are gone, the wife is gone, and there is Raphael with his brand new, 100-inch TV stuck to the wall. You pull the blinds, you reheat the Zachary's pizza, and watch 7 hours. Anger is there no more. But depending how reflective you are, after having watched TV for 7 hours, you become an existentialist. You say, really? Like a corpse, I laid in my bed and watched 7 hours of TV. Now you have a different kind of a frustration, connected to a different set of issues. As long as you know that life is an imposition, that birth is an imposition, not something you chose. And I'm not going to be spiritual or religious saying, oh, we're here for a reason. Forget all that stuff. Life is just a burden because you're forced to be responsible for things that you never wanted to be responsible for. The only way I think you can save yourself from a great deal of frustration, anxiety, confusion, dread, anger, rage, violence, power. The more power you have in life, the more you're in charge. And the truth is, when you're in your teens, when your job isn't secure, when you don't have a degree, let's just say, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to just say, oh, I am a Stoic, I don't really care. You're just a counterfeit. You're not born to be a Jesus Christ or a Buddha. You're just a regular chap in a life that's there to just demolish every part of you. Does that, Ravi?
So if you have the accumulation of resentment in you, in the husband, and in the wife, what are the different threshold points where that behavioral, like you see an expression of behavior that starts to shift on a broader scale? And to your point about power, in a power couple, a power couple, how does that manifest itself when you have extraordinary power?
Let's say you and I are married. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you and I have children. And let's say that we got married when you were, 30 and I was 35. And your parents were very religious. You were a Bible thumper. You have a very unique relationship with religion and religious ideas and sentiments and all that. And you always wanted your life to have a religious meaning. The truth is, from a very young age, you wanted to be a nun. You wanted to devote your entire life to God, let's just say. But things in life happen, and you begin to find boys somewhat interesting. And then, like Pinocchio, you begin to have some bad relationships. And your relationship with God disappears, and you begin your relationship with boys. And you go through a string of bad relationships. But deep down, your foundation, even though you may have forgotten it, is one of religiosity. You wanted to live a solitary life, just immerse yourself in books and ideas and writing and talking about things that are meaningful in the religious way. At the age of 30, your body begins to scream, baby, baby. And that becomes the altar for you that you worship. And now you go out there, you say, okay, is there a man worthy enough to be the father of my child? And eventually I walk into your life. Now remember, like all dreams that we have, motherhood, having a child, they're just fantasies, dreams, stories. And kind of like the movie we talked about, Bluey, the assumption is I'm going to be the best mother, or the best father, or the best this and the best that. And these ideas are not yet challenged or tested by life. You know, it's interesting. In the past 3-4 days, I've had maybe 20 emails from students telling me that I haven't done any work for the class, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done that. Is there any way I can at least pass the class with a C or a B or even an A? And that's the thing, you know, you assume that the semester has just begun, it's never going to end. I don't like this guy, the class is boring, his voice is monotone, it's not going anywhere. And lo and behold, you wake up and it's the last week of school. Good morning, Abby. And